Well, hello Dirtfish Rally friends. It's round 4 of this year's FIA World Rally Championship, and as you all know, things are very, very different this week. There's a very different atmosphere around this rally, but we're going to do our very best to honour the memory of Craig this week, and we're going to try and bring you the action as it unfolds here at Rally Croatia, and part of that has to be our preview, which is what we're going to give you here. Now look, it is a sombre atmosphere in the service park, but there's very much a feeling that people want to honour Craig this week.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the key message we have to put across. This is what Craig would have wanted, it's what the family and James have all said they want to happen. So
Absolutely.
The show will go on, but as you said, it's a very strange atmosphere. It's strange, but we have got what should be an interesting rally to distract us all from what has been a very difficult week for everybody in the World Championship.
Absolutely, absolutely right. So what have we got ahead of us, folks? Well, Rally Croatia, we're only on our 3rd year, aren't we? But my goodness me, has it given us some drama and excitement over the last 2 years? It certainly has. I think we can expect more of that this week. Look, we have in front of us, folks, 3 days of action, 20 stages. Day 1, it's a long one, 130 k's. Day 2, round about 116 k's. The final day, 54 kilometres. That is enough, though, for us to get really excited about, that's for sure. Let's talk a little bit, Luke, about the conditions, about what's made this event so challenging in the past 2 years. It really has come down to the surface and the weather.
Yeah, and I think it's been described, I remember at the start when we first came in 21, drivers couldn't think of a rally to compare this to because the surface is so unique. You've got so many different kinds of asphalt, and we've just been doing a little bit of driving, and we'll have a little bit of a look later on to physically show you. But the way these stages change, the way we talk about cuts a lot on tarmac rallies, but here, the way the pollution comes into the road, even when you think it's dry, there's something to catch you. It's slippery, it's unpredictable, and it is, I think Richard Milner yesterday compared it to Rally Germany almost.
Absolutely.
In its different natures and unpredictable challenge. So it's definitely a very, very unique challenge for the drivers this weekend.
It really is a unique challenge. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're very quickly going to nip back into the stage. Let's have a look at some of those cuts and just maybe try and work out why they cause so much trouble out there. God, doesn't that castle at the top of the hill look great? Well, we've come down just a couple of corners from where we are up there. Look at this. This is a fascinating corner for me. It's clearly inviting the cut. Come and look at this though. What's the note? I don't quite get this. It's cut, but come here, Elliot, come up this way, and you can see they've cut on the recce. It's cut, but don't cut too far because there's a culvert. There's a culvert just before the corner. The temptation looking at this, what you see is to go a little further in, a little further in, a little further in. You can't come any further in because of that cut. Certainly not too early, but they will come a little further as the rally progresses. As more cars come through, they'll want to make as straight a line as possible here. But here's the problem. So there's mud, there's clearly mud. This isn't going to dry out. It will not dry out before the rally. So there are 2 issues here. There's mud that's being dragged onto the road as they come off of the cut here. And then there's this edge. Come a little closer. Have a look at this edge. It's really, really sharp and really, really rough. Now, they're well enough in on the left side of the car. For me, the issue is if they go much further, it's the right side wheels that could easily catch the serrated, really rough, horribly cutting edge here. Very typical of what we see in the rally. 2 things you've got to watch for. The mud coming out, the exit from the corner, slippery, treacherous. The edge, sharp, punishing on the tyres. Mighty, mighty jeopardy ahead for all our crews. Yeah, so as you can see, it really doesn't matter whether or not we get any more rain. More rain and that mud in that cut there is going to be quite treacherous. But we can expect to see a messy, messy rally, Luke, no matter what the weather does. Now, road position is going to play a reasonably big part, particularly on the first morning. Just explain why that is.
Well, we always talk about road position on gravel rallies, and the further up you feel, further up the field you are, that's always considered a disadvantage because of road cleaning. But on a tarmac rally, and particularly one like this where, as you've seen, the roads will deteriorate massively with each car that goes through, being at the front of the field will be an advantage. So that puts Sebastian Ogier in the best place, particularly on Friday morning before we've had a first pass condition of a stage, because as you can see with the way the road is, if you're coming in there when it's clean, you more or less know what to expect. But obviously when the guy's done the recce, You can't see, there might be a little bit of cutting from guys in front of them, but it's not anywhere near the same as a Rally 1 car chewing up the ground on the inside, where it could be slippery, or it will be slippery, and it's just that little bit of trust. You have to take a bit more caution. They do, of course, have route note crews as well to look at all this stuff, but Ogier will have the cleanest road and therefore theoretically the most grip.
There's an awful lot of strategy that will still come into this. You have to look at the surface. It isn't like a Spain where there's maybe a couple of surface changes. You've either got new tarmac or slightly older tarmac. Here, within the space of 300 metres, you can have 5 or 6 different sorts of tarmac.
Yep.
And do you know what? That plays into the hands of drivers who are able to react quickly. Elfyn Evans is the man who in the past has always shown an innate ability to do that exceptionally well.
Yeah, and he's done well at this event in the past. I think obviously 21's remembered in the way that he lost it, but you have to remember he was leading the rally into the final stage. He was right there. Last year there was a puncture on stage 1, which kind of meant the weekend was impossible to recover from. It's psychologically to get it that early. It's incredibly difficult, but who knows what he can do this weekend. He's obviously in a different situation. We have to say a sort of big well done to Toyota as well for agreeing to only run 2 cars in the Manufacturers' Championship with the situation at Hyundai and M Sport obviously only have 2 cars anyway, so Elfyn won't be manufacturers registered. So actually, I don't think at this level it's going to affect the promotes too much, but he only has to think about himself this weekend, which is a little bit different to what he's done in the past.
Could be really interesting this weekend. Let's talk then about Ott Tanak before we go to talk about our further 2 Toyota drivers. Ott Tanak was supreme here last year. That inspired tyre choice on the final day. They had some really good weather information. But Tanak likes challenging conditions on tarmac. He's a driver that can adapt a bit like Evans. He can adapt very, very quickly. Maybe the difficult conditions here might suit Tanak.
Yeah, and obviously everybody is probably almost over-documented now, the sort of adaptation process Tanak's having with that Ford Puma, when everything is more about what the driver can do in a situation like if the conditions get difficult. That's where we should expect Tanak to be even better than he would be anyway.
Tanak has a real chance this weekend. He wants to avoid any issues with the car clearly, and he will be there or thereabouts. Let's then talk about Neuville before we go on to talk about our 2 top drivers in the Toyotas. What do we think? He's had a great start to the year, 3 podiums. Looking confident enough, do you think, to push for the win here? We know that he likes tarmac, we know he goes well on tarmac, and again, another driver who can adapt quickly to changeable conditions. Would your money be on Neuville?
It's a big question, that.
Mine's not. I think he'll be there.
Yeah, I'm still struggling to see past a certain person, but we'll probably get to that. But I think the only thing with Thierry that potentially might hold him back was, and it isn't the same kind of rally, but in Monty, the Hyundais probably weren't quite as dialed in as any of the drivers would have liked. So that is maybe the only thing that I'd look at to suggest, but past form for that doesn't always mean anything when you get to stage 1. Absolutely anything can happen, as we know in the WRC. But yeah, as you say, I actually do think his season in general is actually being slept on a little bit. It is 3 third places at the first 3 rallies, which is incredible consistency. And I think, and somebody can correct me on this, it could potentially be his best ever start to a season.
It's very
in
possible.
Terms of points.
It's very, very possible. It's the building blocks that he needs, to mount this challenge yet again for the title this year. Our colleague George Donaldson keeps reminding us whenever he talks about Neuville's there's this pattern that seems to have developed with a slightly more cautious Friday and then banging in those incredible times on the Saturday. He can't afford that here. No. He needs to be right at the pointy end on Friday, and I think there's every chance that Neuville will be. Let's go on then. And again, not discounting Esa-Pekka Lappi, but I really can't see him featuring. And I think a top 5 for Lappi.
Well, he's that. Yeah, it was a difficult rally for him here last year. We can make predictions, can't we? But yeah, we're expecting the guys in the front 5 of the field with road positions and everything to be the ones.
That the winners are going to come from. Toyota. Can't see beyond the Toyota win here, I'm afraid. Much as I would dearly, dearly, dearly love to see a Hyundai win. And honestly, we have to be impartial. Come on, Hyundai. I would love to see Neuville winning this, and it would be quite fitting. But I think it's going to be a Toyota, and I think it's going to be Sébastien Ogier. But before we get to Ogier, let's talk about Kalle Rovanperä. I think we're seeing a slightly different Rovanperä this year.
I do.
He's more relaxed. He's an awful lot more relaxed. It's incredible how obvious that is. He's more talkative.
Yeah, very, very, very chilled out right now. Not that he's ever been comfortable within himself, but he hasn't really, if you think about it, he's a 22-year-old world champion.
Yeah.
It's like, that is...
Living a dream.
Yeah, completely.
As Craig always said, you've got to live the dream and you've got to make the most of it. And Rovanperä is doing that.
Yeah.
But he is in a slightly different place. And I don't know. He's got a real challenge on his hands this year for the championship. Last year, he'd almost had it won by now. You know, it was his to lose almost at the end of this event, wasn't it?
Yep.
It's a different year for Rovanperä, and I think it's, again, we talked about strategy in terms of winning this rally, in terms of winning the championship this year. It could well be a strategic approach that's needed from Rovanperä.
Yeah.
And maybe he's taking the slightly more strategic approach. It's not an all or nothing approach, you know.
Yeah.
He knows that he can't really afford to make a mistake and score too many big fat zeros this year. So maybe that's why we're seeing a slightly different Rovanperä, I don't know. But the man who's leading the championship, our retired driver, our old boy in the field, Sébastien Ogier, he's going to win this one, isn't he?
Yeah, I'd love to be interesting and try and say something different, but I think you consider everything. You consider road position, you consider the form levels in the confidence that Ogier's got at the minute, and we've gone on about it a lot in Mexico, but it still just blows my mind that he's leading the championship after missing Sweden. I know obviously that gave him a better road position than some in Mexico, but the man is an absolute god of rallying. We know this, and it's incredible. It's obviously been a mixed event for him in the past. He didn't come last year. 21 was a little bit chaotic towards the end. He still got the win despite those difficult circumstances. So yeah, I think it is very hard to look beyond Ogier for the win.
It really is. I know you wrote a piece after Mexico saying that Ogier is probably at a higher level than we've ever seen him. And it could debate, as these pieces should do, it provoked a bit of debate. I totally agree with you. I think when you look at where Ogier is at just now, he is so chilled, he is so calm, he is so relaxed. There is so little pressure on his shoulders. He is driving for the enjoyment, and my goodness me, he's enjoying every single second of it. And yeah, with his current form, what is it? It's tarmac. He could have won the last. He's won the last 3 out of 4. It could have been 4 out of 4 without the puncture in Japan. His tarmac form is quite exceptional. I think Ogier will be the man to beat. But it's Rally Croatia, and if Rally Croatia has taught us one thing over its short history, it's that it can be unpredictable. Anything can happen here. Ogier has made the point. It's not just about tyre preservation in terms of getting the most out of your tyres. It's about thinking about how you reduce that risk of puncture. And as we've seen from the little piece that we did in the stage, you know, those edges are so sharp. You know, you've got to reduce the puncture risk. And Ogier is the master at that. I can't see past him, I really can't. No. 1, 2, 3, do you want to give us a quick 1, 2, 3?
Oh, now I'm on the spot. I would, as we've gone with Ogier, so that's not a surprise at first. I would say second, Thierry Neuville, and third, Elfyn Evans.
Oh goodness me, I was just
Mexico,
about to agree with that. I was just about to agree with that as well.
Podium,
and I was about to agree with that. I would absolutely dearly love to see Thierry winning. I think he will give it everything. I genuinely think, more than anything, Thierry Neuville will want to win this weekend, and he will give it everything. And what we know about Neuville is he is absolutely one of the most committed and bravest drivers in the field. As our good friend Andrea Adamo used to tell us, you know, Neuville dragged that team along, and Neuville got more out of that car than that car was giving him in the past. He's a fighter, he is a battler, and I think with that extra motivation this week, Neuville could push those Toyotas very, very, very close indeed. So I am going to go with a Neuville win. Come on,
good man,
Thierry
good man.
Neuville. Neuville, Ogier, and I'll go with Evans in third as well. If you agree, folks, if you disagree with what we've said, comments below. We always love to read your comments. Stick them in the comment section below. We'll have a read of them and we'll see what your thoughts are. So, 3 days ahead of us. Some great action ahead of us, folks. Never forgetting the memory of Craig Breen. Rally Croatia this year gets underway on Friday morning. We'll see you there, folks.